Hi, I'm Joe Hutton Jr. One of the profound desires that my dad had over the years was to take all of the basketball film that he had accumulated from Hamline and somehow get it into the hands of the players that had played for him. So this last year, I have transferred these basketball films onto videotape. I don't have to tell you the countless lives that Coach Hutton touched as a coach, as a teacher, as a friend. A lot of the fellows that played for him followed in his footsteps and went into coaching. And most of his best friends socially were former basketball players. He had a great deal of pride and respect for all those that played for him, and I can remember him talking about kids that came to Hamline without a dime, and he found them summer jobs and board jobs and free rooms, and then his eyes would light up with pride when they would come back as graduates and successful businessmen and coaches, whatever. So I hope that this tape can help you reflect on the memory of Coach Hutton and some of the players that you played with and some of the games that you played in during your years at Hamline. Joe Hutton graduated from Carleton College in 1924 with a Phi Beta Kappa honor. He was an All-Stater 4 years at Carleton and ranked as one of the finest shooting forwards in Minnesota basketball history. After graduation, Joe Hutton spent 5 years coaching at Northfield, Sioux Falls, and Hopkins before coming to Hamline 1930 as a part-time coach. 35 years later, he retired with a record unrivaled by most coaches in his profession. Joe Hutton's overall record of 588 wins and 186 losses was at one time the 6th highest winningest record in the United States, both large and small colleges. His conference record of 347 wins and 99 losses will probably never be equaled. In his 35 years, there were 19 MIAC championships. It started in 1932, 33, 34, 35, 37, 38, 39, 41, 42, 43, and in 1945 and 46, the conference disbanded because of World War II. It picked up again in 1947, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 57, and finally in 1960. Going on to the NAIA, Joe Hutton won 3 national tournaments in 1942, in 1949, and 1951. There's only been one other school in the history of the Kansas City tournament that has ever won 3 times at Kansas City. His record of 36 wins and 10 losses in NAI play remains unmatched to this day. 3 of his Hamline players still rank among the top 10 in all-time scoring in the NAI tournament: Lloyd Thorgard, Hal Haskins, and Jim Fritchie. And Coach Hutton was also very proud of the fact that he had 7 players of his that went on to play professional basketball. Raleigh Seltz, 1946, played with the St. Paul Lights, the Anderson Packers, the Waterloo Hawks. Howie Schultz, 1945, played for the Minneapolis Lakers, the Anderson Packers, and the Fort Wayne Pistons. John Norlander, 1943, played with the Washington Capitals. Vern Mickelson, 1949, played with the Minneapolis Lakers and was an all-pro player for 7 seasons. Joe Hutton Jr. played professionally with the Minneapolis Lakers. Hal Haskins, 1950, played professionally for the St. Paul Lights and the Waterloo Hawks, and Jim Fritchie, 1953, played professionally for the Baltimore Bullets. But Joe Hutton's coaching story starts back in the 1930s, so let's reminisce for just a minute on his first decade. The 1931 to 40 teams, the first 10 years, produced 8 MIAC championships and 2 runner-ups. They laid the groundwork of winning tradition for the teams of the 1940s and 50s and into the 60s. The old gym was their home floor, with a running track around the upper floor which made it impossible to shoot from the corner. The seating capacity was probably 500 at the most, including those standing on the overhead track above. By the mid-30s, the overflow crowds prompted Hamline under Dr. Charles Nelson Pace to build a field house that would seat 3,000. In 1937, the field house was completed and dedicated in a game between Stanford and Hamline. It was named Norton Fieldhouse. And since that time, the field house has been renamed in 1986 to the Joe Hutton Fieldhouse. Following the 1930s came many more years of basketball success at Hamline in the 40s and 50s, a total of 19 MIAC championships and the great national championship teams of 1942, 49, and 51. For those of us who played at Hamline, there were some great games and great memories. So let's take a look back on one of the basketball seasons at Hamline under Coach Hutton. The year was 1937-38. The squad members for that year, standing, Coach Hutton, Vic Olson, Abe Johnson, Harry Falk, Warren Johnson, Howard Ridgway, Al Schaefer, Bob Larson, Ken Greeno. Kneeling, Buzz Gray, Tom Connor, Frank Malkovich, Jack Campbell, Al Janicki, and Harold O'Rourke. The 37-38 team won the state conference championship with 10 wins and 2 losses, and their overall record was 15 wins and just 5 losses. The nucleus of this team won conference championships in every year they were at Hamline. But this was a milestone year as it marked the beginning of basketball played in the new field house at Hamline. The game against Stanford University of California was the official dedication of the field house that eventually was to be named the Joe Hutton Fieldhouse. Although Hamline lost to Stanford, the game grabbed national attention as Stanford was one of the nationally ranked teams of that year, and the heralded star of that team was number 7, the All-American Hank Lucetti. He was credited by many as the first to use the one-handed shot, and many players converted from the two-handed set shot to the one-handed shot as a result of Lucetti's play. The tape that you're about to see was the Stanford-Hamline game of that year.